Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do so. Do engage with it, and I'll reveal the results at the end. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Goldsmith. I've been on the show a few times now, so some of you might know me, but I am the co-founder of a company called Grow Global, and we specialize in helping companies scale, specifically franchisors and multi-unit companies, and we help them scale both locally as well as internationally. So Grow Global is a consultancy that also covers marketing, social media, PR, pretty much anything that you need in and around franchising, as well as brokerage. And we are one of the first companies in the UK to offer a success fee only brokerage service. So yeah, check us out if you get a chance. But I've been in the franchising world for close on 18 years now here in the UK. And I've worked with some of the biggest franchises in the world. And I've also worked with some of the smallest, some really quirky concepts and some that are, seemingly quite boring, but make huge amounts of money. So to me are still very, very exciting. The one thing about franchising though, is at its core, it is a marketing machine. So both from the franchisee's point of view, to get new clients, as well as from a franchisor's point of view, to get more franchisees. So besides the operation of the business itself, a very, very large portion of the daily activities for both parties is going to be marketing. And marketing has always been a dark art for franchisors and franchisees alike. The big problem is that many of us are so focused on our core business that we neglect to educate ourselves on marketing, what marketing works, and what doesn't really work. And the consequence is that sometimes we make some extra money and sometimes we don't. Because when marketing doesn't work, the unfortunate thing is that often you push it quite a long way down the road before you decide to pull away from it. But today what we're going to be talking about is some transformative technology. So technology that we have been using, and I believe something that is going to make up a very, very large portion of the daily activities of franchisors and franchisees alike. In fact, any multi-unit or any business, for that matter. And that is a technology called artificial intelligence. In particular, I want to talk to you about a technology called GPT-3. Very, very few people have heard about GPT-3. It is an artificial intelligence, which, and I have to take a look at my screen if you don't mind, it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. Now, if you were to read up on GPT-3, you might start feeling a little bit worried. But in fact, it has been quite transformative for our business. So what GPT-3 is effectively a journalist, a copywriter, and a researcher all bundled into one in artificial intelligence. GPT-3 has allowed companies like Copy.ai, Conversion.ai, Marketing.ai to emerge in probably the last sort of year and a half. And they are completely transforming the landscape of content writing, blog writing, article writing, and anything in between. So anything to do with writing and or research into a subject, they are making a big difference in. So Copy.ai in particular is a company that I came across. I was on a platform called Clubhouse, and I was popping into the artificial intelligence rooms, and ended up in a room with some of the foremost experts in artificial intelligence in the world, all talking about how scared they were of GPT-3 because of its immense power. So what has happened is, I believe it's something that Elon Musk is involved in, and a few of the other very, very sort of highly acclaimed Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. But effectively what it is they only allow 10% of GPT-3's sort of technology out into the world, right, for companies like Copy.ai to be able to use. But Copy.ai, when you go into it, it's really interesting. So you go in and you effectively just write a sentence of some description, and maybe even just your brand name and a few keywords of what you do. and it will literally write you your Facebook posts, and it will literally write you, the beginning of your blog. So what they identified as an example with blogs is that, the biggest problem was always just the first paragraph, right? And, just getting you started on the blog was the big issue. So they created this AI bot, which effectively creates that first paragraph for you, and it gives you a whole bunch of different options. So for us, it's been incredible, because what we've been able to do for our clients and for companies and for ourselves, in fact, is to be able to put out huge amounts of content with very, very little effort, right? And let me just tell you, before you wonder what the quality of this copy is like, in many, many cases, it is much better than I could have written myself. So where I would have put in a particular sentence, etc., thinking, right, this is perfectly crafted and it's beautiful, it spits out at the bottom of it, Copy.ai spits out sentences that I'm just like, wow, actually, I'm going to use this one. This is going to be my primary one. So from a content point of view, it really is making quite a big difference. At the moment, there are instances where Copy.ai are writing full articles, full researched articles on subjects from around the world. So what effectively happens is this AI technology, when you put in your keywords or when you put in your information, what it'll do is it'll go and it'll search across Google, right? Find the most relevant bits of information. How the programmers have done it, I don't know, because the structure's already really good. Everything is well. From a grammatical point of view, it's really, really good. Some of them don't necessarily get right on the mark, but many of them do. So what does this all mean? Well, for franchisors, one of the things that we always struggle with, and it's a very expensive part of our daily routine, is coming up with content. What it also is for franchisees, and when you speak to franchisors, this is quite a big frustration for them, because historically, franchisees will, spend a lot of time on social media, right? So those that do focus on social media could spend hours. An Instagram post could take 30 minutes to an hour, because it has got that vibe. You've got to get that right photo. You've got to get exactly the 30 hashtags. You've got to get the perfect wording, etc. And it's really, really, really time consuming. And what it does is, because it's so time consuming, it takes away the time from selling. It takes away the time from doing things that are actually going to generate business, where, statistically, social media doesn't really do all that much, right? On an organic level. So as an example with Facebook, if you were to put out a post on Facebook, and you might have spent an hour on it, you might have spent 10 minutes on it, whatever that may be, the algorithm behind Facebook is only going to share that particular post with maybe 3 out of every 100 followers that you have. Think about that, right? So 3 out of every 100 followers, and you don't have control over who those 3 are, right? So this will just go out to those guys, and it could be completely the wrong audience for you. And the reason for that is because obviously they want you to spend some money. They want you to do some targeted advertising, etc. Because otherwise, what they're doing is they're eating into their own income. But anyway, so with a GTP3 technology, what it does is just reduces the amount of time that you spend trying to figure out what's going on. Now, on another level, the other reason we use AI in particular in our business is for reputation management. So AI has come on leaps and bounds when it comes to reputation management. So what I'm talking about right now is we work with a company called Social Places, and what they do is they monitor all of our traffic and that of the franchisees to make sure that there is no issue going to occur that we don't know about. So the AI technology that they use will actually gauge the intent of the messaging, right? So as messages are coming in from WhatsApp, from Messenger, it can even be email, messages on your chatbot, on your website, all of those different places, right? Review sites. What this technology does is it monitors all of that and will give you a sentiment reading, right? So they'll figure out exactly what the intent is of that sentence. Is this somebody who is about to explode, right? As opposed to just using keywords where somebody uses a strong word and that flags it up to you. It'll take the whole sentence into context, right? And it is an absolutely brilliant early warning system, because if you know that your AI, which is on 24/7, is monitoring and at least making sure that the communications are being flagged in the right way, you can jump onto a problem before it even becomes a problem, right? You can deal with customer services queries in such a good and efficient way that you end up getting a customer for life and an evangelist at that. So, from a technology point of view, I think that we are absolutely, going to be looking at huge amounts of AI that's going to be taking over quite big functions in the business world. In franchising in particular, I think that is going to be true, because ultimately what we want to do as entrepreneurs is we want to be able to focus completely on delivering great and amazing service to our customers. All this other stuff and social media and blog writing and all these other critical elements that are part of the business, right, now no longer need to take most of the day to complete, or most of the evening to complete, right? Which is absolutely wonderful. And it's really going to help businesses up their sort of standards when it comes to providing customer services, and also just focusing on product development and things like that. So, I'm really excited about that, and I think that that's going to be absolutely perfect. So, right, I'm going to jump onto a few questions now, if that's okay. Right, the first question that we have is Catherine from Instagram DM. If I'm thinking about joining a franchise, what are the top questions I should be asking when I meet them? It's a big move for my business, and I want to make sure it's right. Okay, so Catherine, when you say it's a big move for your business, I wonder if that means that you're converting over to a franchise. Regardless, what I would say is you can do a lot of due diligence on companies, and most of your answers are probably going to come from the franchise network itself. But you need to take a lot of the feedback that you get from anywhere with a pinch of salt. My top tip for figuring out whether or not a franchise is going to be good for you and is going to work for you is to speak to the support team, right? Spend time with the support team. So who is the head of the support? Who is the person that is going to be providing you with the critical information on a day-to-day basis? Because remember, if you are joining a franchise, right, the odds are that you are speaking to the executives, the salespeople, and those guys. And their job, and honestly, it's for many of them, it's not a job; it's a true belief. But their job is to tell you about all the amazing things of the franchise, and they'll give you some negatives, I'm sure. But what their job is to try and encourage you to join their franchise, because they believe in it, right? And they think their business is brilliant, and it might be. The support people are who you get given to, right, after the sale is done. And those support people, in my experience, don't have time to sugarcoat anything. In fact, they want to do exactly the opposite. So, speak to the support people, sit down with them, spend half a day if you can with support, listen to what they, how they support people, make sure that the internal team is strong and robust. Are there area managers that you can rely on? If there are area managers, can you speak to the area manager that will be covering your particular area? Because at the end of the day, after the sale is done, these are the people who are going to be the most meaningful to you, right? So get to know them. I think that those are probably the best people to speak to, and I think that's probably the biggest tip. The second biggest tip, I guess, is to never ever think that it's going to be easier, right? So although a franchise gives you a lot of advantages, the difference between successful franchisees and unsuccessful franchisees, almost universally, right, is exactly the same thing that is the difference between a successful entrepreneur and an unsuccessful one. It is the drive, it's tenacity, and it is the grit, right? It's the ability to pick yourself up when you're feeling down. It's the ability to be able to push when everybody else is giving up. So, even though you're within the protective environment of a franchise, it doesn't necessarily mean that money's going to be falling off trees and, it's going to be, this wonderful, wonderful experience. It is still hard, but you've got a team behind you, right? So it makes it a lot easier than it would have been in the past. Anyway, Catherine, I hope that answers your question. Excuse me. And I think it's relevant both for whether or not your business is converting into a franchise, or if you're actually just buying a franchise. Right, let's move on to Alex from Facebook Messenger. I'm currently looking to recruit more franchisees. I have 2 already who are people I knew beforehand. What characteristics should I look out for in new potential franchisees? So, Alex, there's a lot of theories that go around with franchising. In my experience, and I've helped recruit and launch well over 1,000, possibly 1,500 individual franchise units over the years, right? What you are not looking for is, a CV that says I am, the smartest person in the world, because in the world of entrepreneurs, that doesn't mean anything. What you are not looking for is somebody who is going to tell you all the right things that you want to hear, and then turn out to actually probably just better off being in a job. So what I do in recruitment, right, is we look for grit and we look for tenacity. I don't think I've looked at a CV for about 20 years now. And the reason was, in my early days in franchising, is that the guys that came along and that were very well prepared for the interview and who had loads of previous interview skills training, etc., in the corporate environment, they would come into the interviews and they would blow me away, right? And I would like them, and they would be energetic and they'd say all the right things, and I'd leave that meeting thinking, oh my God, if I could have 100 of him or her, then everything's going to be brilliant. I mean, it just really doesn't turn out that way. So what you're looking for in a franchisee, right, is you're looking for, as I said, grit, determination, etc. What you're also doing is you're not recruiting for today. So you're not looking for somebody who is right for you now. You're looking for somebody who's right for you in 2 years' time, when the chips are down, when a pandemic hits, when everything goes wrong. What is that person going to be like at that point, in the recruitment process? So what you need to do is you need to design a recruitment process that eliminates your personal bias from the equation, right? We actually have a scoring spreadsheet that just gives us a little bit of clarity when we're going through the franchise process. So, as an example, right, if, say, for instance, you said to somebody to book on Calendly, book a discovery call on Calendly, and what they do is they decide, well, they're just going to call you directly, right? Is that a positive or negative in the context of franchising? In my view, that's probably a negative, because what you're wanting from a franchisee is somebody who is just going to follow the system, because they're always the ones who make the most money, right? Just follow the system, just follow the system. That doesn't mean that you're looking for robots in any way, shape, or form. What you are looking for is you're wanting somebody who's going to come along and say, okay, Alex, listen, I believe you. I know that you've gone through all of this heartache. I know that, that you personally have gone through all of these issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save myself the time and the heartache, and I'm just going to follow your system because I know that you've done it before. That's what you're kind of looking for. So you've got to have a recruitment process that eliminates your personal bias, especially if you're the franchisor. Because if you're the franchisor, your biggest problem is going to be that you are over enthusiastic about your brand, right? You are the ultimate true believer in your brand, and why wouldn't you be? But what that does is it does often cloud your judgments. And if you speak to 1,000 franchisors, right, almost every single one of them would have said that their first 5 franchisees, in amongst those, there were at least 3 or 4 that they wouldn't have recruited today. If you'd like some pointers, if you want to have a chat about how you do that, please feel free to contact me through Grow Global. I'd be more than happy to just give you a few tips, because look, franchising for me is more than just a business. It's a way to help other people feed their families. So, if I can help in any way, please let me know. Hope that helps, Alex. Christy on Instagram. I've always assumed AI was expensive and inaccessible to SMEs. Are there affordable solutions available, and do you have any recommendations? So the companies that I mentioned right now, so Copy.ai, Conversion.ai, Marketing.ai, all of those are about 40 quid a month. Really, really affordable. And for the even if it was 140 a month, or if it was 200 a month, let's be honest, the cost of one blog, right, from a copywriter is going to cost you 300 to 600 pounds for one blog, You know, even at twice the price, it is a good deal. Well worth looking at, you know. So in my opinion, like I said, you know, it doesn't remove the human element, because you still got to have that initial you know, input. But it sure does make a big difference when it comes to creating a lot of you know, a lot of content pretty quickly. So yeah, I'd go down those. Justin on Twitter DMs, are there any industries in particular that do well as a franchise? Justin, you know, it's a tricky question, because yes, almost all of them, you know, that I know of, do pretty well. So during the pandemic, as an example, the you know, the industries that didn't really do well were obviously catering, hospitality, restaurants, and things like that. Also, the children's sector struggled a little bit. So anything in person, you know, indoors in particular, struggled a little bit. But I tell you, you know, coming out of the pandemic, just a friend of mine, Theo, who runs a company called Swim Time, they had over 2,000 children that were in the waiting list to get back to swim classes straight as soon as everything opened up. You know, the companies that have been doing incredibly well over the pandemic, that I would call pandemic resistant, is the care franchises. So, you know, going out into people's homes, etc. I'm 100% convinced that the NHS would have collapsed without all of the care franchises, because what they were doing is they were going and caring for people in their homes, so that they didn't need to be you know, too worried about the hospitals, etc. So, and I think the NHS actually recruited or took on a lot of these franchises to kind of look after people in their homes. So, you know, those are good. Handyman franchises, outdoors, you know, companies doing fences, etc., were absolutely storming it. You know, they were doing incredibly well. So yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult thing to say, because in certain times some do better than the others. But in general, let me just tell you, you know, give you this little fact. If you are with a franchise who's been operating, let's just call it for 2, 3, 4 years, right, and they've got 10 or 15 franchisees, the success rate of franchisees is 93.7%, right? That's according to a NatWest survey. So regardless of which business you go into, right, which franchise you go into, as I said earlier in my advice, it's still going to be hard work, right? It's still going to be up to you to make it work. However, right, the odds of failure are dramatically lowered, right? So like I said, 93.7% of franchisees are successful and profitable after 3 years. If you take that in comparison with normal SMEs, it's almost the opposite, right? So what I would do if I were you is take a look at what your budget is. Take a look at all of the businesses that you know, that you can afford on your budget, and bearing in mind the banks will usually give between 70 and 75% of the total requirements in a loan as for your franchise. So if you're buying a 10 grand franchise, and you know, you have to you know, have to have some working capital and all that kind of stuff, the banks will give you, call it 17.5 grand, right? So include your working capital, etc. And then you just need to come up with the you know, 25-30% of the loan. But once you find out what your budget is, take a look at all of the businesses that are within that budget, right? And then decide which one you like the most, because underlying the engine, if you lift up the hood, right, they are almost all identicals. And I'll give you a quick example. If a franchise costs £25,000, I will put money down, right, that your turnover after 3 years is going to be between £300,000 and £450,000. That will be what the projections are. So if all things are equal, and we know that across the franchising sectors, according to the pricing structure, you are likely to hit a certain sort of turnover, then there's only 2 other factors that you need to do, right? And number 1 is choose the one you like. And number 2, right, is put in more work than you've ever put in your life. Because if you do that and you're successful within the network, right, then you know, this could be a really beautiful thing, and the sale value at the end is great, and you know, it's wonderful on all fronts. Anyway, I hope that in a very long-winded way answers your question. I'm going on to Noel from Twitter. Have you ever had a situation where one of your franchisees has done something to damage your brand reputation? If so, how did you manage the situation? Noel, yes, many times. And the answer is, and I know this is going to sound really harsh, but the answer is you have to come down like a ton of bricks. There's a lot of people who've got some other sort of theories, but come down like a ton of bricks, because I'll tell you why. This is not about your brand, right? So if one of your franchisees damages your brand's reputation, right, what they're doing is they are affecting your whole network, right? So many people will look at a franchise agreement and they'll say, well, hold on, this is a super biased document, super biased towards the franchisor. When in fact, actually, if you look at it through a different set of eyes, right, it's actually super biased towards the franchise network. The whole reason you have a franchise contract is to stop people from doing brand damage. And within your franchise contract, you will have all of the steps that you can take, after any brand damage is done. My honest answer is that is something that is going to affect the ability of your other franchisees to feed their children, right? And it's your job as a franchisor to come down hard on that, right? Take all the factors into account, but you really do want to deal with this properly, especially if it's serious brand damage. We had an example years and years ago where a chap refused to go and provide a service in a community where there was sheltered housing, right? He just refused, point blank. A customer phoned him up, and we actually heard this on the recording, right? And he was just like, no, I refuse to go there. I'm sorry, find somebody else, right? He was really rude about it and everything. And, the problem was we actually went and we contacted this lady afterwards and we said, look, we're really sorry we heard this recording. Please, can we compensate you, etc. Turned out she was the managing director of all the sheltered housing in the area, a pretty serious person. Now, if she had just had a casual sort of drink with a friend who happened to be a reporter on that Friday, she's like, oh God, you won't even believe what happened. That guy over there just refused to come over here. And this friend journalist of hers, she's like, oh, that's terrible. Jumps on her high horse and she's like, I'm going to research this company. She looks at it and she's like, oh, hold on, this is not just an individual, this is a franchise, right? She's like, oh, my story just got 10 times bigger. She then goes and checks out the franchise and figures out that it's actually owned by a bigger company behind it, right? And she's like, hold on, that story's just gone from, a tiny local story to a big national story. And the next thing, you've got headlines that say, so-and-so, discriminates against people in sheltered housing. Whole network, gone. That's it, finished, right? And for that reason, your job as a franchisor is to make sure that you take strong and appropriate action in any of those kind of situations. So, good luck with that. If you need any advice, again, please feel free to contact me. Join the Franchise Mastermind group on Facebook. Just chuck it in there, and we can try and help you with that. Anyway, hope that helps. Noel. Oh, sorry, we just did Noel. Chantel on Instagram DM. Can you share more examples of situations AI helps with customer service? Is it just that it flags when something needs to be dealt with? No, so you can actually get it to give you quite a lot of insight, right? Because it's sharing it's sharing the actual the intent and everything of the messaging. What our particular system does is it actually will go and it'll sort of give you a whole insight into all of the messages, right? So you can see it on the dashboard. The AI is kind of organizing it according to certain criteria, and we can set that criteria. So it might be super happy customer. If I were you, I would do this, and it actually gives you recommended actions. Based on what's going on. If you get a great review, or if you get a bad review, if you get an average review, if there's something in the chatbots that is going wrong, somebody's chatting over there, it can tell you exactly what what some recommended answers might be. It's not to take away the role of the human, but it is very, very, very powerful, Chantal. It's quite transformative actually, and the great thing about the AI side of things is that it's scalable. So if a franchise, say, that had 10,000 franchisees, or whatever the number might be, or even a retail organization, had thousands and thousands of operations, how on earth do you manage all of that and still sleep at night? Because as our previous question was all about brand reputation, right? So what if there was something over there that was just an early warning system that just said to Noel, hey, listen, there's a problem over there. You need to deal with it. It happened overnight. But if you get onto it first thing this morning, you can sort it out really quickly. That's where it all comes in. But then, you know, as I said, on the positive side too, you've got the ability to be able to, you know, organize things. And, you know, even if you've got new staff members, new customer services guys, give them 5 or 6 different options. And it's all built into this AI. I think the underlying AI that we use is something called Mila, which is a Canadian company. And, you know, they've got 500 of the top AI PhDs in the world working on this at all times. So it's pretty advanced. Anyway, I hope that helps, Chantal. You know, again, you know, feel free to contact me directly if you want to chat about it. I'm more than happy to give advice. Guys, so we put a poll out and we asked you, do you think AI content creation is good or bad? 0% of you said good, 0% of you said bad, and 100% of you said, I don't know, or that you're unsure. Absolutely perfect, because this is brand new technology. And let's be honest, you know, everything we've ever heard of AI is, you know, probably got to do with, you know, death and destruction, you know, Terminator and all of that. But actually, it's a very, very useful tool when used responsibly. And I think from you know, in the context of marketing and reputation management in particular, it's a massive game changer, even for small businesses. So, you know, I definitely recommend that you take a look at some of the technology that's out there. You know, it is changing every day, and there's new and exciting things coming up, even in video with AI. You know, so keep your eyes open on that. And again, you know, contact me if you need anything. So thank you all for tuning in. If you want to get in contact with me, you can email me on sean@growglobal.com. That is GROE global.com. Or visit our website at www.growglobal.com. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Johan Gori, accountant and managing director at On Point Accounting. Tune in for business advice and bookkeeping hacks. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. I've really enjoyed answering questions today, guys. Thank you so much for letting me talk about my favorite subject, franchising plus some AI. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and the sunshine's going to treat you well this weekend. Thanks, guys.